Good morning. This is Squidder Dragon of No Goblins Allowed. We are about to start the first round of the IOS Trials of the Elder Dragon tournament. It's great to see that we have 14 participants for this tournament for IOS, and we have a good mix of decks represented. Here is the participant deck list. So you see there's a good range of different decks: aggro, control, mid-range, on different colours. What I wanted to do was, prior to my first matchup, which is against Cucho Lamberta, so we have a mid-range match versus control. This match should favour me. Control can be difficult, but I think with my deck I have enough small, low-cost mana threats to be able to get out. And of course, I have the ability to gain the tempo. So what I wanted to do before the match was just to look at a deck tech of the deck I'll be running in the tournament. This is a main deck only. I do have a sideboard prepared for this, but of course sideboarding will only become an option if I'm lucky enough to make top 8. So let's jump into the app and have a look at the deck. I wanted to I've always enjoyed Bant and John primarily as deck shard colours for making and running decks, and I felt that Bant was going to be a reasonable choice for the tournament because it gives me options. It's a mid-range deck, and it should give me options against both aggro and control decks, which we see in the matchup, and also against some of the popular archetypes like vehicles, which is obviously still a top tier archetype. What I decided to do with the build was really focus on using the Eldrazi. So as we go into the deck, and I will just look at the edit of the deck and we can look at the list. I wanted to rely on the Eldrazi ability to recur creatures on the battlefield for additional benefit. So in particular, this card, Eldrazi Displacer. So running with coming out with a fairly low 3 mana cost with white, and also being able to return and exile creatures. And in particular, I want to be focusing on targeting my own creatures, although this can be used obviously to exile creatures as a threat from your opponent's side. So once I'd gone down the Eldrazi Displacer, I then really decided that I wanted to focus on creating a Bant build that focused on Eldrazi. So we'll run through the deck. So typically a standard flicker type build for Bant. So I start off with 3 cheap Essence Fluxes with blue, giving me the option to bounce, in particular my own creatures, either saving them from directed damage or being able to flicker them for their enter the battlefield effects. In the Bant colours, a great early creature for early defence and late game once more mana is available. The Sylvan Advocate's a great choice. Long Road Home is a similar exile target creature. This one gives the advantage of returning the creature with an additional +1/+1 bonus. So it acts a bit like Essence Flux, but in some ways is better. And this can also be used, although unusually, to use it to exile an opponent's creature, but it could act as a saving grace. The disadvantage, of course, exiling an opponent's creature, it removes the creature temporarily by the end of turn, but it does return it with an additional +1/+1 counter. From a removal point of view, and particularly for fast aggro or like token, we have 2 Declaration in Stone. Downside with Declaration in Stone, of course, is it provides clues for card draw for the opponent, but you know, if used in the right situations, it's a valuable addition in the deck, and a fairly sort of standard control card to have in Bant. The next card, Thalia, is an awesome card. It can be difficult for the opponent to deal with. I mean, again, obviously I'm expecting a lot of removal and aggro, so the Thalia comes down. She manages to lock down an opponent's board. It's a tempo play, of course, and allows me to gain advantage, gain the upper hand. So I think Thalia is valuable against a range of different decks, certainly against aggro, because of her first strike ability and 3 toughness, but also slowing down an opponent from flooding the board with small creatures. Of course, aggro generally would run burn removal, but as I said earlier, this was where I would hopefully rely on bringing Thalia out either early on curve, in which case I just have to bait or draw opponent's removal. And at other times I could be playing Thalia with a sort of protection in hand in the form of one of the flicker effects. We then get to the, I guess, the main build card for the deck, as mentioned, the Eldrazi Displacer. So the ability to put, in particular, you'll see with the other cards that we'll run onto, being able to use the Eldrazi Displacer on my own creatures for the enter the battlefield effects. Very powerful. So the first of those, and more as a mana, we'll look at the mana base later on, where you can see I'm running 23, and actually this Bant build, because of the Eldrazi, is effectively a 4-color deck. So obviously, like Waste is considered as it's colorless, but it's considered as a color that you need to have available to cast certain of the Eldrazi creatures. So in effect, we've got a 4-color deck, which can be a little bit difficult from the mana base, but the reason for running the Eldrazi Skysbrawner is it can generate Eldrazi tokens, which act as colorless mana, so can get my other Eldrazi out quicker and provide colorless mana if it's not actually been drawn or available. We'll see when we come on to the mana base. I've also got other ways of generating the colorless mana. As much as a kind of vehicle tech, a defense against vehicles as an archetype, I'm running Reclamation Sage, 2 copies here, and also I have the ability again with its enter the battlefield effects. If an opponent is running a vehicles deck and I have Reclamation Sage to take out 1 creature, I'd want to be able to then use the flicker effect to knock out multiple artifacts. So it's a good addition in this deck, and it is obviously a valuable include against sort of the vehicle archetype. The deck is as well, you know, from a tempo point of view, Spell Queller can be quite a useful and powerful card, acting as both a flash creature, so as a surprise blocker coming in, again, in some ways anti-aggro. If they have small, fast creatures that they're swinging for, particularly with haste, this can come out as a surprise blocker. But of course, its other great utility is as a counter spell, and being able to counter spells up to 4 mana cost. So again, it's a great card to have. It comes on at a fairly cheap cost of 3 mana, with just the 2 colour cost there, white and blue, and allows me to gain tempo advantage. Reflector Mage is also a very important card in the deck, and particularly for the Bant archetype and the tempo advantage. Being able to bounce a creature, in particular, the advantage of not just bouncing the creature, but preventing its recasting immediately on the following turn. And coupled again, this is another key card in the deck for the flicker return effect. So if I have a Reflector Mage down, and then I keep exiling and returning it with the earlier spells we looked at, this is able to lock down multiple creatures even on the same turn, and really take control of the board. Coming back to the Eldrazi, we'll look at the mana curve, but there's a lot of low cost 3 mana creatures to be able to cast. So Matter Reshaper as an early Eldrazi card as a 3/2, with the advantages, if it is being blocked or removed, it gives you the card advantage in terms of being able to potentially draw and put directly onto the battlefield a replacement card for equal mana. So again, when I decided to focus on the Eldrazi side of the things, Matter Reshaper seemed like a very good card to include. I also include a single copy of Pilgrim's Eye. Again, the main reason for including Pilgrim's Eye is more for mana fixing. Again, it comes down with 3 mana. I mean, it's only a 1/1, but the advantage it's having is searching for a missing colour that I might have. And again, it's another good potential target for Enter the Battlefield, because if I need multiple sources of missing mana, I can have this out, and as long as I've got the ability, either through the Eldrazi Displacer or through other flicker effects, I can keep exiling and returning the Pilgrim's Eye, and get the mana that I need. We come on to another, again, useful anti-combo deck, I guess, and also as a great blocker for its mana. The ability to both get information on your opponent's hand and remove a key card. Again, as a target for the flicker effect, returning the Thought-Knot Seer does have the disadvantage of every time it's exiled, because it's leaving the battlefield, it gives the opponent a card draw, but at the same time, you're then able to look at what card's been drawn and the other cards in hand and exile one of those. So I think this is very much in the deck for disrupting combo decks, and remove the best control elements, and even in the mid-range mirror, taking out the sort of like top-end creatures. So again, Thought-Knot as Eldrazi, in keeping with the theme of the deck, is another great build. We then move on to 2 Planeswalkers, which work really well from Bant. So we've got Gideon, of course. No more to be said about Gideon, such a powerful Planeswalker. It's useful to be able to have him out on curve or relatively early, although of course his mana cost requires double white, so it's a consideration when you're fetching mana with, for example, Pilgrim's Eye, to be mindful of the fact that having double white available can be useful when Gideon is drawn and is available to play. Gideon again can pretty much get ahead and help win games if he comes down early enough, but even late game he can come down and be immediately sacked, giving a boost to all creatures. So a great utility card in the deck. Tamiyo again in particular, and Tamiyo of course in the Bant colours, so we obviously need all three key Bant colours to cast Tamiyo, but her presence in the deck in terms of the tempo effect, whether in card draw and giving you the cards you need, again, particularly against things like control or removal, her ability to be able to draw extra cards on dealing damage, and usefully as well being able to trigger that on the opponent's side. So if you have an opponent's threat delivering damage, Tamiyo can target that creature and give you a card into the bargain. Another great tempo and enter the battlefield effect is Avacyn, of course, again double white, so similar double mana cost as Gideon, but a great card just generally to sort of cast, but in typically being used as a surprise enter the battlefield effect. So having enough creatures on board, having the mana to cast Avacyn, swinging, and then obviously casting her after blocking, just giving a great tempo advantage. We then come back to the top end of the deck, which is packed out with the additional Eldrazi. So this is very much, as I term it, an Eldrazi build, because with the amount of Eldrazi I have, the lower cost creatures that we saw at the beginning of the list. Reality Smasher, again, from a tempo point of view, the fact that it has the 5/5 body means that it's for the, even like for mid-range, casting this out fairly early, enabling the additional mana required. Again, it needs a waste to be cast, but this is a game where we would rely on maybe the Eldrazi Displacer generating the mana token to give us the ability to cast this thing, hopefully when we have it in hand pretty much on curve. Another great tempo card, Drowner of Hope, looking at the top end of the curve, so we're looking at 6 mana. It's only got a single blue cost, which is obviously in our Bant colours, and is a key colour for the deck anyway, so it's more about getting to 6 mana and having Drowner of Hope. Drowner of Hope provides a great swing and can turn the situation of particularly a deadlock match, because you can use the tokens to tap down 2 of an opponent's creatures up to 2 when it comes out. Again, as another target for Flicker, I can bring this out, tap down a couple of creatures. If I have a Flicker effect, I can flicker it to get yet another 2 tokens, and rinse repeat process. So again, another very good like top end, and again, it can really change the turn of a battle when it's cast at the right time. And this was a last add to the deck when I was building and sort of testing it, but of course it dawned on me that this makes a great addition to the deck. We have a lot of low cost creatures earlier in the curve that come out. We can look at the mana curve, as I said, in a minute. But with Elder Deep Fiend, although it has a high casting cost, And of course the other thing to consider is it's double blue, so it's another double cost, double color cost casting creature. But this again is a fantastic surprise card. You can emerge it obviously with flash. Um, you know, it can normally come out much cheaper than its casting cost as long as you're running the double blue cost. And of course its ability when it comes into, and it's actually running in cast, so this is doesn't give us the advantage of repeating that enter the battlefield effect because it's only when it's cast. But even so, casting this with emerge, tapping down potentially up to 4 target permanents, and then you have a very good and robust 5/6 body on the battlefield. So again, it tends to be a game winning card when it's cast, in a similar way to Drowner of Hope. So that's the main creatures on the deck. Before we go on to look at the mana, if we just look at the mana curve, you can see here the point I was mentioning about, particularly in having the Matter Reshaper. We have a large number of cards that are casting for 3 or less mana. So with Matter Reshaper, for example, when Matter Reshaper dies, we're able to fetch a card, and if it's a casting cost of 3 or less, it goes straight on the battlefield. So again, this is a great card to have. It fits the theme of the Eldrazi, of course, and you can see the top end of the curve. So although we are running with 23 lands, the combination of the mana fixing with Pilgrim's Eye and the fact that we can generate additional tokens that give us the colorless mana for the Bant Eldrazi creatures means that I think this mana base at 23 lands works fairly well. And we don't have, we obviously have a top end, given this is a mid-range deck, but our top end range of creatures between the Planeswalkers, the Avacyn, and the top end Eldrazi really gives us a good mid-game to take advantage of power on the board. We come back to look at the mana base now finally. So as you can see, majority of cards, obviously we want to be relatively relying on non-tap lands where possible, so that at least when we provide the Bant colours for the creatures we're casting, we can get them out pretty much on curve. So if we look at the actual mana cost, the mana spread across Bant, the 2 key colours are obviously white and blue, and we know we have double white and double blue casting costs, so we're reflecting that with having 4 planes. We have 3 islands, slightly less because we have slightly less blue spells. Green, in effect, could be considered a bit of a splash colour, but we have 2 important creatures in there against 2 archetypes. We've got Sylvan Advocate for sort of early aggro, and we have the Reclamation Sage to manage vehicles. So green is effectively in the Bant colours more of a splash. We only have 5 spells that are across the deck using green, and as a consequence we just run 2 green main forests, and obviously we can mana fix with other cards in the deck. Similar, although the Eldrazi's are quite important, you can see here the actual the number of cards that require the actual colorless mana for Eldrazi is just slightly higher than green. It's 6. So again, we just run with 2 wastes, but as again we said, we have multiple ways of generating the colorless mana in addition to the 2 wastes, which is useful to make the deck work. We rely on, in the Bant colours, Lumbering Falls as a, although it comes out as a tap land, but is an advantage in the game to having the board as a man land and being able to dodge some early removal, because we it tends to be very difficult generally in Magic duels after Acid Moss was removed to remove lands at low cost. Of course, you're still prone to removal like Fatal Push, which is good tech against man lands, because of course they're considered 0 mana cost, but otherwise Lumbering Falls is a good addition to the deck to give us an additional sort of creature once the mana is available for casting. We then look at a series of dual coloured lands to help with the fact that we're Bant and we're effectively in 4 colours with wastes. So we use Hinterland Harbour, which of course we're hoping to be able to cast untapped based on having either green or blue. So this gives us an additional green source, which we've mentioned, and helps with our double blue casting costs. Likewise, Glacial Fortress, we're hoping to cast that untapped, and likewise with our third dual land, Sun Petal Grove, again giving us access to green. So although we have a splash green effectively, we have more than enough green mana sources just directly without relying on mana fixing that's also available. In Bant, again, the last 2 decks, very useful, is obviously having Ether Hub, because it can provide us with any colour of mana, although of course it's a one-off with the energy it provides, but that can particularly help where we need to cast, or helping us to cast the double costed colour creatures like Abyssin or even the Gideon on curve. And we have 2 Evolving Wilds again to allow us to mana fix for a missing important colour, either a missing colour in Bant or as a missing double costed white or blue normally. So that's the deck. I'm looking forward to playing it. I think against the field that we have, it should be a decent matchup against most of the decks, which is kind of what it's all about. I think the difficult matchups I feel are potentially going to be Control. If Control has enough early cancel creatures, and of course, with cards like Censor, but even like later cards with Commit, it can disrupt some of the value plays I have on the board. But I do believe, on balance, the Bant in some ways, particularly if the mana's kind, can provide enough of these cheap threats to override any control elements that come out. I think it has enough low cost creatures with good utility to stall or slow down aggro. And yeah, I think it's looking forward to running it. So I'll probably do a quick video after this, just again some random versus matches. I don't consider this to be a ladder deck. I haven't really played it. I've tried it in the ladder just for interest, for testing purposes, but it's not a deck that I have been relying on the ladder. Ladder and I is just tough at the best of times anyway, so I've normally relied more on sort of controlling type cards of late, or aggro has been my main taking into the ladder matches. But I have used this a couple of times in a versus match, and it has normally gone quite well. I could probably rely on it more, or just try it more on the ladder, but I hadn't built it with ladder in mind. It was definitely put together with the tournament in mind. So look forward to playing it, and we'll see how it runs. Thanks for watching, and look out for the test matches that I'll probably upload after this one, just so you can see how the deck performs. Thanks. Bye.